Offset thought the rumors were dead. Offset thought the name stapled to Chrisean Rock's orbit was finally severed. Offset thought the worst was already posted, denied, archived, forgotten. Then a 24-year-old man named Karen Mai, known online as Ronny Doe, got shot outside a residence in Severn, Maryland, on a February night, and every thread Offset quietly buried got yanked back into daylight. Ronny Doe spent the final months of Ronny Doe's life publicly insisting that Ronny Doe was the real father of Chrisean Rock's infant son, not Blueface. The paternity fight turned physical in a Maryland mall. The paternity fight turned fatal in a Maryland driveway. And the second the murder investigation began trending, the 2-year-old affair accusation Blueface tweeted at Offset came roaring back at the worst possible moment for everyone attached to that triangle. Offset isn't talking because Offset wants to. Offset is talking because Offset has to. Somebody has to piece this mess together, so let me break it down the way nobody else is willing to on camera. Here is the foundation of the entire saga. On February 3rd, Ronny Doe was gunned down outside a home in Severn, Maryland, roughly 25 minutes outside Baltimore. And Arundel County police arrived and found Ronny Doe lying on the ground, administered medical aid at the scene, and rushed Ronny Doe to the University of Maryland Baltimore Washington Medical Center, where Ronny Doe was later pronounced dead from the injuries. Authorities have classified the case as a homicide. Authorities have classified the shooting as targeted, not random. The word targeted is doing all the heavy lifting in the speculation that followed, because targeted implies purpose, and the only publicly visible purpose Ronny Doe had in the months before Ronny Doe's murder was a loud, public paternity war against Chrisean Rock and Blueface. Ronny Doe wasn't a stranger to Chrisean Rock's world. Ronny Doe and Chrisean Rock dated for roughly 5 years as teenagers. Chrisean Rock has confirmed the teenage romance on camera. Chrisean Rock has explained on camera that Ronny Doe's death genuinely hurt. But Ronny Doe re-entered Chrisean Rock's public life in October 2024, when Ronny Doe posted footage on Instagram claiming that Ronny Doe was the biological father of Chrisean Rock and Blueface's son. Ronny Doe didn't whisper the claim. Ronny Doe demanded a DNA test publicly, repeatedly, and framed Ronny Doe's demand as a fight for Ronny Doe's own child. In November 2024, things escalated at a Maryland mall. Ronny Doe approached Chrisean Rock while Chrisean Rock was shopping with the infant, flashed a phone in the child's face, called the child by a nickname, and refused to back down when Chrisean Rock questioned why Ronny Doe was stalking the family. Police got called. The whole confrontation was caught on camera. By December 2024, Ronny Doe was still at it, telling anyone who would listen that Ronny Doe had filed for a paternity test and accusing Chrisean Rock of dodging legal service for the child known publicly as Chrisean Jesus Porter. Blueface didn't stay quiet through any of this either. Blueface had already had on-camera doubts going back to the pregnancy itself. Blueface initially denied fatherhood on an entertainment show. A paternity test conducted on that same show later confirmed Blueface as the father. Blueface never fully let go of the doubt after that on-air confirmation, which is exactly why Ronny Doe's public claims kept finding an audience willing to believe Ronny Doe. After Ronny Doe's death, Blueface's own manager, Whack 100, went online and publicly questioned whether Ronny Doe might actually have been the father after all, keeping the alternate theory breathing past the point most observers thought the question was settled. Whack 100's comments came after Ronny Doe's death, and Whack 100's comments came after the Instagram paperwork was already posted, which means Whack 100 kept the fire lit at the exact moment the fire should have finally burned out. Whack 100 had no forensic evidence to offer. Whack 100 had no lab paperwork to produce. Whack 100 only had the public's appetite for doubt, and Whack 100 fed that appetite one more time. Now here's where the timing detonates. Days after Ronny Doe was killed, Chrisean Rock posted paternity paperwork on Chrisean Jesus Porter's own Instagram account. The paperwork supported Blueface as the father. The paperwork carried a sample date of May 4, 2023. The paperwork had apparently been sitting around for roughly 2 years. The internet did the math and the math looked ugly. Some fans openly accused Chrisean Rock of manufacturing a moment. Some fans accused Chrisean Rock of fabricating the document entirely. Some fans zeroed in on the website listed at the top of the paperwork and pointed out the wording suggested the test was still in progress rather than finalized. One commenter wrote, word for word, that Chrisean Rock knew the truth the whole time, that the truth would come to light, and that the karma would eventually hit. That comment wasn't gentle gossip commentary. That comment was a public accusation of concealment tied directly to a dead man who had spent Ronny Doe's final months begging for the very document Chrisean Rock finally posted days after Ronny Doe was already in the ground. The murder investigation is still open. And Arundel County investigators have not publicly named a suspect. And Arundel County investigators have not publicly disclosed a motive. And Arundel County investigators have stated, according to the public record, that the attack was targeted rather than random. That single word, targeted, is the engine that keeps the speculation machine spinning months after the bullets stopped. When there's no official answer, the internet builds an unofficial answer, and the easiest name to build that unofficial answer around was Chrisean Rock, given Chrisean Rock's history with the victim and the timing of Chrisean Rock's actions right after Ronny Doe's killing. The fact that the case has stretched into a fifth month with no named suspect has only supercharged the speculation engine, not cooled the speculation engine. Each week of silence from law enforcement is another week that conspiracy fills the vacuum, and conspiracy has consistently pointed toward Chrisean Rock. Then came the sister moment. Toki, Chrisean Rock's own sister, appeared on the Jason Lee show months after Ronny Doe's death and dropped cryptic remarks about Ronny Doe's death. Plenty of viewers read Toki's remarks as an insinuation. Plenty of viewers read Toki's tone as something more than careless. Chrisean Rock eventually addressed Toki's comments directly on a different podcast, told the audience that Chrisean Rock and Ronny Doe dated for 5 years as teenagers, told the audience that Chrisean Rock lost somebody Chrisean Rock grew up with, and described the loss as something that genuinely hurt. Chrisean Rock also acknowledged, on that same podcast, that the dynamic between Chrisean Rock and Toki is still weird, that Toki sometimes says I love you while also throwing Chrisean Rock under the bus. That phrasing isn't the language of two sisters who cleanly moved past a public accusation. That phrasing is the language of a relationship still working the wound out loud in front of an audience of millions, and the wound between Chrisean Rock and Toki is now part of the same news cycle as the murder case and the paternity fight and the affair rumor, all converging on one name. Then came the dream story. Chrisean Rock went on a separate interview months later and described a dream about Ronny Doe the night before Ronny Doe was killed. Chrisean Rock said the dream felt incredibly real. Chrisean Rock said the dream was shared with only one of Chrisean Rock's brothers before going public. Volunteering that detail months after Ronny Doe's killing did not quiet the speculation. Volunteering that detail opened a fresh lane of speculation, because whether the dream was genuine grief processing or an odd thing to share publicly with millions of listeners became a brand new debate the internet could not stop debating. The more Chrisean Rock tried to humanize Chrisean Rock's grief, the more Chrisean Rock's grief was interpreted as a tell, and every fresh tell dragged Chrisean Rock's name back into headlines Chrisean Rock was trying to leave behind. So now stack the layers. Layer 1. A man who spent Ronny Doe's final months publicly demanding a paternity test is dead, killed in a targeted shooting outside a 7-home in and Arundel County. Layer 2. Paternity paperwork that could have ended the argument was apparently sitting in a drawer for 2 years and only appeared after Ronny Doe's killing, posted to a child's Instagram account, dated to May 4th of 2023, and openly questioned as to the document's authenticity by thousands of commenters. Layer 3. A sister publicly hinting at the sister's possible connection to a murder, then softening that hint only under direct pushback from Chrisean Rock. Layer 4. A baby father's manager publicly floating the alternate paternity theory again, from the manager's own platform, well after the theory should have expired. Layer 5. A murder investigation with no named suspect, no public motive, and one classified word, targeted, doing all the ominous lifting. Any one of those layers on its own would fuel a heavy news cycle. All 5 layers running concurrently is why Chrisean Rock's name barely left the trending lists for months, and why every time a fresh headline surfaced, a chunk of the digital audience immediately typed Chrisean Rock into the search box. Now here's the piece that drags Offset back in. None of those 5 layers involve Offset directly. None of those 5 layers connect Offset to Ronny Doe. None of those 5 layers put Offset anywhere near Ronny Doe's murder investigation or the paternity dispute. The connective tissue is older, uglier, and was stitched in December of 2023. On a Sunday night in December 2023, Blueface posted a series of tweets accusing Offset of sleeping with Chrisean Rock. Blueface didn't keep the accusation vague. Blueface described the alleged encounter. Blueface named the location. Blueface added the detail that the encounter allegedly happened while Offset was still married to Cardi B. Blueface demanded the situation be handled. The accusation hit Offset at the worst possible moment, because Offset and Cardi B had just unfollowed each other on Instagram a few days earlier. The internet didn't see a single isolated accusation. The internet saw an accusation, an unfollow, a publicly shaky marriage, and a denial, all colliding in the same 48-hour window. That collision is what welded Offset's name to Chrisean Rock's name in the public imagination. That collision is what welded Offset's name to a scandal that, on paper, has nothing to do with Offset beyond a single night allegedly in 2023. Offset responded almost immediately. Offset retweeted Blueface's exact post, the same post that started the fire, and clapped back directly underneath the accusation. Offset wrote, in Offset's own words on the platform, that Offset never talked to or touched Chrisean Rock, told Blueface to get help, and refused to leave Offset's denial vague. Offset's denial was attached to the original accusation, on the original post, under the original wording. That kind of verification move is unusual. That kind of verification move is the kind of move a person makes when a person understands precisely how screenshots age on the internet. Screenshots don't blur with time. Screenshots don't paraphrase with time. Screenshots don't disappear when a person swaps a phone. And screenshots don't lose the timestamp that proved Offset replied within minutes of Blueface's original post. Chrisean Rock didn't follow up with the same posture. Chrisean Rock deflected on camera more than once over the following year, sometimes on a podcast, sometimes on a streaming interview, sometimes on a brief Instagram live that disappeared overnight. Chrisean Rock dodged the question rather than denying the question directly. That pattern, an accusation from Blueface, a flat denial from Offset, and an evasion from Chrisean Rock, became the blueprint for how the triangle would behave every time the story resurfaced. The pattern repeated when Blueface brought the affair claim back up during a recent podcast interview. This time, however, Chrisean Rock's posture changed. Chrisean Rock called the accusation false this time. Chrisean Rock accused Blueface of generating engagement rather than speaking truth this time. The shift in tone is exactly the kind of detail that keeps fans combing back through old interviews looking for inconsistencies, because the inconsistency is between the two responses, both delivered by the same person, both delivered on camera, and the two responses contradict each other in tone and in substance. Fans combing the archives can play the two clips back to back and watch Chrisean Rock's posture swing from deflection to denial in the span of a single news cycle. The timing of Blueface's podcast revival is what makes the whole situation read as engineered. Blueface didn't bring the affair claim back up in a vacuum. Blueface brought the affair claim back up while Ronny Doe's murder investigation was still technically open. Blueface brought the affair claim back up while Chrisean Rock was still fielding questions about the paternity paperwork and Toki's podcast insinuations. Blueface brought the affair claim back up while true crime accounts were still actively speculating about Chrisean Rock's possible involvement in a homicide case. Reigniting a 2-year-old affair claim in the middle of that storm guaranteed two specific results. First, Offset's name was pulled back into headlines Offset had nothing to do with. Second, Chrisean Rock's name was reattached to a second front of controversy at the exact moment the first front was still burning hot. And a second front of controversy is the worst thing a person under suspicion can afford, because a second front divides the audience's attention and forces the audience to choose which front feels more damning. Stack all of that against the rest. A targeted homicide with an open investigation in Maryland. A 2023 DNA sample date stamped on a 2026 Instagram post. A sister whose remarks read as insinuation on one podcast and read as soft correction on another podcast. A baby father's manager keeping the alternate paternity theory alive from the manager's own platform after the alternate paternity theory should have expired. A baby father bringing the affair claim back into a microphone at the worst possible moment in the calendar. And through every wave Offset, sitting outside the murder case, sitting outside the paternity fight, sitting outside anything concrete, tethered to Chrisean Rock's name only through that single 2023 tweet Offset already denied twice on camera in front of millions of viewers. The mechanism at play isn't complicated. The mechanism is association. Chrisean Rock is the connective tissue between three separate scandals, and Offset's name is permanently bolted to the first scandal. Every time the second scandal or the third scandal trends, Offset's name gets swept into the wreckage by association alone. That is why Offset has spent the past several months fielding questions about a scandal that is technically closed. That is why Offset has had to repeat the same 4-word sentence Offset has been repeating since December 2023. That is why Offset is speaking out now, not because Offset wants to relitigate a tweet, but because the silence around Ronny Doe's murder case is getting louder, and silence is exactly the kind of vacuum that sucks every adjacent name back into the conversation faster than any publicist could defend against. Offset's hand was forced. Chrisean Rock's hand was forced. Blueface's hand wasn't forced. Blueface chose to pick up the microphone at the exact moment the microphone would do the most damage. So where does this leave everyone involved? The Anne Arundel County investigators have the case classified as a homicide. The Anne Arundel County investigators have called the shooting targeted. The Anne Arundel County investigators have not named a suspect. The Anne Arundel County investigators have not confirmed a motive. The Anne Arundel County investigators are still publicly calling for tips from the community to move the case forward. Until those investigators bring the case to a real conclusion, the loop keeps running. The loop keeps pulling Chrisean Rock's name back into headlines. The loop keeps dragging Offset's name back into the same headlines through nothing more than a 2023 tweet that Offset already denied twice in Toki's podcast remarks that Chrisean Rock has only half addressed, and Blueface willingness to recycle the affair claim every time a microphone gets pointed at Blueface's face, and whack 100's comments that keep the paternity question breathing past the moment most people thought the question was settled. The loop is structural, not coincidental, and the loop won't break until the murder case breaks first. What's actually unresolved here isn't Offset. What's actually unresolved is Ronny Doe's homicide. A 24-year-old man named Karen spent the final months of Ronny Doe's life publicly demanding that Ronny Doe's name be added to a birth certificate for a child the rest of the world already attached to Blueface's name. Ronny Doe's name was never added. Ronny Doe's body was carried out of a 7 driveway in February. Ronny Doe's killer hasn't been named in the public record. Until Ronny Doe's killer is named, everything else is noise circling a single unanswered question. And that noise will keep sucking every name attached to Chrisean Rock's orbit into the headlines, whether those names had anything to do with Ronny Doe's murder or not. The noise doesn't care about guilt. The noise cares about adjacency, and adjacency is enough. Offset isn't the center of this story. Offset is the satellite. Offset didn't pull the trigger. Offset didn't file the paternity paperwork. Offset didn't post the dream on camera. Offset didn't drop the insinuating remarks on the Jason Lee show. Offset didn't recycle the affair claim on a podcast microphone. Offset is just the name that got stapled to Chrisean Rock's name in 2023 by a tweet Offset already denied on the same platform. And that keeps getting unstapled and stapled back on every time the rest of the story trends. That's the picture right now. That's the noise level as of today. And until Ronny Doe's murder case closes, that's the picture everyone in this orbit is going to keep waking up to. Now drop a comment with the theory that fits the timeline best. Hit subscribe so the next update can hit your feed the second a fresh headline drops. And stay loud because the answer is still out there and the answer hasn't been printed yet. The mechanism keeps running, and the mechanism doesn't